It was good for me. I needed it. I guess out of everyone in my family, I never had that moment to cry.
But along with those beautiful years, she also witnessed her father facing countless pressures, lawsuits, accusations, and constant tension from the public. Paris was not just an outside observer. She lived in that house, watching her father struggle with insomnia, financial pressure, and complex relationships in the entertainment industry. That's why when Paris says, "There were people around my father who broke him down," it's not just a theory. It's the living memory of a child who saw her father surrounded. What makes public opinion pay even more attention is that Paris did not stop at suspicion. She stated with near certainty that her father was set up. In Western culture, it is extremely rare and profoundly shocking for a child to directly imply that their father's death was a setup from outside forces. The phrase, "all arrows point to that," has become a mirror reflecting pain and helplessness. It also shows one thing: Michael himself left signs in his daughter's heart that he was in danger, and that is why Paris will never believe the official story. After her father's death, Paris went through a period of deep crisis. She admitted that she faced depression and even sought extreme actions. But at the same time, Paris also said that this pain helped her realize a mission to uphold the truth about Michael Jackson's death. Every time she appears in the media, Paris does not forget to mention that her father was a kind, loving person and that his death was not simple at all. This both earns her sympathy and puts her at the center of endless controversies. What is special is that despite being opposed or doubted, Paris still receives a large amount of empathy. Michael's fans often write on social media, "If we love Michael, we must also listen to Paris." For many fans, Paris is the only living bridge between Michael and the public. She not only retells her father's story, but also brings back dark moments that the public never saw. That's what gives Paris's words a weight that no one can completely deny. Paris's story has created a crack in the way the world views Michael Jackson's death. It is no longer a tragedy that can be confined to a legal file, but a mystery full of suspicion. Every word she says is like a broken mirror, reflecting the dark corners that the public has never looked at directly. For the Jackson family, Paris's words are a continuation of Michael's legacy, a legacy that contains not only music but also the truth. But for the rest of the world, it is a reminder that we may never truly know what happened on that fateful morning of June 25, 2009. And it is here that the second climax of the story is formed. If, in the previous chapter, LaToya brought mysterious warnings, in this chapter Paris brings emotional testimony, not rumors, but the vivid memories of a daughter. The combination of LaToya's warnings and Paris's affirmation makes the story even more frightening. It is not just a conspiracy in the music industry. It is also an unhealed wound in the heart of the family itself. And when Paris exclaimed, "It was a setup," the public knew that the story of Michael Jackson did not end with the verdict of Conrad Murray. It had just begun. If the words of LaToya and Paris Jackson instilled in the public a sense that Michael Jackson did not leave this world solely because of a medical accident, then this chapter reveals an even greater shadow, that of the entire music industry. It was the place where Michael reigned as king, but also where he came up against his most powerful enemies. No one expected that a rapper like Kanye West would become one of the people to publicly mention Tommy Mottola's name after Michael's death. In a speech, Kanye implied that the figures at the head of the music industry were not simply managers, but could be controllers in the shadows. The name Mottola immediately stirred up a public storm because he was no ordinary figure. For many years, Mottola was the CEO of Sony Music Entertainment, the company that had a close and intimate relationship with Michael. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Michael was one of Sony's key artists. They collaborated to release classic albums like Bad, Dangerous, and History. That partnership once brought Sony billions of dollars in revenue. But the relationship gradually became strained as Michael grew more independent and began to resist the record label's control. The climax came in 2002 during a public press conference where Michael directly called out Tommy Mottola and described him as devilish. Michael accused Mottola, along with others in the executive circle, of abusing their power, exploiting artists, and conspiring against him. He told the public, "The record companies really do conspire against the artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever it takes, and Tommy Mottola is devilish." That was not a gentle accusation. It was a huge explosion right in the heart of the music industry. And it was the turning point that led many to believe Michael had angered forces that were far too powerful. Another suspicious point in Michael's final years was the sudden change in his inner circle. Longtime collaborators were gradually pushed aside, making way for new advisors, including Dr. Graz's. Tommy, mistakenly referred to as Toei. Tommy appeared as a financial advisor and quickly gained control over many important decisions regarding Michael's assets and career. He played a major role in negotiating the contract for the This Is It tour. This made many of Michael's longtime friends and family feel uneasy. They believed Michael was being gradually isolated from the people who genuinely cared about him and was instead surrounded by new individuals who were only concerned with profit. Some fans even questioned, did someone intentionally change the circle around Michael to make it easier to control him? As mentioned in the previous chapter, Michael's catalog was a precious jewel coveted by many forces. His ownership of a 50% stake in Sony ATV Music Publishing meant Michael had the right to make decisions about thousands of famous songs. In this context, the tension with Sony and Tommy Mottola was not just a simple artist-company disagreement. It was a multi-billion-dollar power struggle. On one side, Michael wanted to maintain his independence and protect his assets. On the other, there were forces in the music industry who wanted to reclaim full control. LaToya once hinted that Michael had seen this from early on, and Paris confirmed it was the people around her father who contributed to pushing him to the brink. When these pieces are put together, a grim picture emerges. Michael Jackson was not just a star suffering from insomnia who turned to tranquilizers. He was a giant in the music industry, possessing immense financial and cultural power while also publicly accusing the industry's top figures. When a person is both a great artist and one of the most powerful shareholders in the industry, their existence is not just about art, but also about business politics. And according to the family's accounts, Michael knew that well. He knew he had become a target. If the previous chapters revolved around internal family suspicions, here external forces officially step into the center of the story. Tommy Mottola, Sony, financial advisors, and the broader music industry all formed a giant shadow that enveloped Michael Jackson. Paris said, "All arrows point to that." Indeed, when pieced together, many arrows point toward outside forces, those with the strongest motives, money, and power. After Michael's death, Sony quickly increased profits from re-released products, from the film This Is It to the exploitation of the catalog. This only caused those with suspicions to question further. Did Michael's passing coincidentally benefit too many forces? And in the eyes of the Jackson family, this was no longer a coincidence. It was like a game that had been set up where Michael was just a sacrificial pawn, and the real victors were those who gained control of his assets after he was gone. It is here that the third climax of the entire story is raised. If Michael's death was just a medical accident, then why was it linked to multi-billion-dollar industry conflicts? If Conrad Murray was just a careless doctor, then why did Michael publicly accuse Sony and Mottola just before his death? These questions caused Michael Jackson's death to far exceed the scope of a criminal case. It became a systemic tragedy where the artist faced a giant industrial machine, and in the end, that artist had to pay with his life. Michael Jackson's death not only shocked the world with the sudden passing of a music legend, but also due to the wave of conspiracy theories that erupted immediately afterward. When a star of his global stature, who also possessed immense wealth and musical power, suddenly dies in suspicious circumstances, the public finds it hard to believe a simple official story. And so, from social media and tabloids to TV interviews, a series of theories spread. One of the most prominent theories revolves around the mysterious organization often called the Illuminati. According to those who support this theory, Michael Jackson was not just an artist, but someone with the ability to influence hundreds of millions of hearts around the world. He held a more powerful weapon than anyone else: music and the truth. It is believed that Michael more than once revealed signs of defiance against shadowy powers. In his performances, he often incorporated visuals, lyrics, or statements to denounce the injustice and control of the rulers. It was his public challenging of this system that turned Michael into a thorn in the side of the powerful. In the eyes of those who believe in the Illuminati theory, Michael's death was nothing short of the elimination of a rebellious figure, someone who knew too much, dared to say too much, and refused to be subdued. Another theory suggests that all the child abuse allegations against Michael throughout 1993 and 2005 were, in fact, deliberate attacks to tarnish his reputation. By defaming him, the media and the forces behind it wanted to destroy Michael's public image, making him easier to isolate and less able to fight back. LaToya Jackson once implied that those lawsuits exhausted Michael mentally, financially, and physically. Some extreme fans believe it was the beginning of a long-term plan before reaching the finale of a mysterious death in 2009. In this view, the death was not an isolated event, but the final point in a series of conspiracies aimed at eliminating the King of Pop. Another conspiracy theory revolves around Michael Jackson's will. After he passed away, a will was published in which Michael left most of his assets to a trust, the Michael Jackson Family Trust, rather than directly to his parents or siblings. Immediately, some family members questioned, was that will really Michael's? There were many shady points. Michael was believed to be in New York on the day the will was signed, but witnesses claimed he was in Los Angeles. The signature on the will was said not to match his actual signature. The people appointed to manage his assets were lawyers and managers who were not particularly close to Michael beforehand. If the will was forged, it means that Michael's multi-billion-dollar assets were redirected according to a calculated plan. The Jackson family spoke out many times, but the matter was never fully resolved. And then, amidst a myriad of dark theories, a strange hope emerged. Michael is still alive. From the first days after the funeral, the internet was flooded with evidence presented by fans. A blurry video showing a man resembling Michael getting out of an ambulance. Photos, allegedly, of a disguised Michael appearing at airports in Paris and even in South America. A mysterious voice in some recordings released after he died. For those who could not accept the truth, the belief that Michael was still alive was a way to cope with the pain. But for those who believe in the conspiracy, they think Michael was forced to fake his death to escape the encirclement of shadowy forces. The common denominator of all these conspiracy theories is a lack of trust in the official story. The fact that a personal doctor was convicted of manslaughter, served 2 years, and was then released seems too simple to explain the death of one of the most influential figures on the planet. The public felt that the answer was not satisfactory. And when trust wavers, imagination is ignited. From there, Michael Jackson's death was no longer just a personal tragedy. It became a fertile ground for legends. What makes these conspiracy theories so hard to dismiss is Michael's public image. He was not just an artist, but a global cultural icon. Those who loved him found it hard to accept that such a great man could die from a medical oversight. In their minds, Michael Jackson had to have left for a bigger reason, a grander conspiracy, or even not left at all. Therefore, his death gradually transcended reality, becoming a mythological story passed down, embroidered, and etched into the collective imagination. Looking back, we see a paradox. Michael Jackson, in his lifetime, always suffered from being misunderstood, attacked, and surrounded by the media and shadowy forces. But his mysterious death made that image immortal. He was not just the king of pop, but a tragic legend, much like Elvis Presley or Marilyn Monroe. icons who left this world in ambiguity, leaving behind countless unanswered questions. With Michael, that legend goes even further, from the Illuminati and a forged will to the rumor that he is still alive. All of this has helped build a legacy that no enemy can erase. The conspiracy theories may never be proven, but they reflect a different truth. The world does not believe Michael Jackson died a normal death. Whatever the reality, the public has chosen to believe a grander, more dramatic story, one worthy of an extraordinary life. Michael's death, therefore, transcended the limits of a historical event. It became a legend, and when a legend is born, it lives forever, regardless of reality. Among Michael Jackson's family members, Janet Jackson is perhaps the one who has maintained the most composure in public, but behind that resilient gaze, a deep pain remains. In many conversations, Janet admits that she has never truly accepted her brother's death, not only because of the void Michael left behind, but also because of the ambiguity, the darkness surrounding that event. In a deeply emotional interview, Janet spoke slowly, as if every word weighed heavily on her heart. Something was definitely planned. "I just don't believe it happened the way they said." That implication caused a public outcry. She didn't specify who was behind it or offer concrete evidence, but every single word was like a knife carving deeper into an unhealed wound. For Janet, the pain was not just the loss of a legend, but the passing of a brother with whom she grew up in a simple home in Gary, Indiana. Michael was not just the king of pop in her eyes. He was the boy who shared her dreams of singing, the person who protected her from the harsh pressures of their family and the music industry. When Michael passed away, Janet felt like she lost a part of her childhood, losing the only person who truly understood her. She emphasized, "That's not just a star we lost, that's a father, a brother, a son. My family has lost a part of its soul." In those words, the public could feel the internal conflict between having to accept the legal verdict that Michael's death was just the result of medical carelessness and the persistent belief that the full truth was never revealed. For the Jackson family, especially Janet, the court records and the verdict for Conrad Murray were all just a thin shell concealing a deeper story. The doubt still exists, like a smoldering wound that never heals. And it is this doubt that means Michael Jackson's death can never be seen as a simple accident. More than a decade has passed, but Janet still mentions her brother many times in interviews, in the songs she writes, and in the quiet look in her eyes whenever she stands on stage. To her, Michael is not just a memory. He is a reminder that the brightest light can also be extinguished by darkness, and that sometimes the truth is more complex than any script imaginable. The story closes, but the questions remain. Justice spoke in its own way, but the hearts of the Jackson family and millions of fans around the world still whisper, Michael Jackson did not die in an accident. Michael Jackson's death will forever be one of the greatest mysteries in music history. What the court presented may be the legal truth, but for his family, Janet, LaToya, Paris, and millions of fans worldwide, there are still unanswered dark areas. The warnings before his death, the fears that Michael shared, the tears of Paris and the choked-up words of Janet, all of them have turned this story from a personal tragedy into a reminder of the hidden side of the entertainment industry and the power of money. Michael Jackson was not just an artist, he was an icon. A man who always yearned for creative freedom, and also a man who had to face enormous pressures behind the stage lights. Whether the full truth is ever revealed or not, Michael's musical and spiritual legacy will live on like an eternal echo in the public's heart. If you believe this story needs to be remembered, please like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next analysis. Together, we can ensure that Michael's voice is never forgotten. Thanks so much for sticking with us to the very end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our daily updates. Goodbye and see you in the next.